On today's episode of On the Couch with Gavin and Chris, we talk to Big Blue North Recording Studio about how their unique studio setup is different from others, his thoughts on how collaborative records are the way to go, and how he became a Utica ambassador for all the out-of-town musicians. This episode is sponsored by Mohawk Valley Living TV show and magazine. To find out how you could be a sponsor, message us on Facebook. Like our Facebook page and stay up to date with a new video every Tuesday. Welcome back to this episode of On the Couch with Gavin and Chris. On today's episode, we have Jeff from Big Blue North Studios. How's it going?
What's up, fellas?
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on the couch. I guess first thing is to explain what is Big Blue North and what do you guys do?
Well, we make records. We are a recording studio, and we are on 2317 Genesee Street on the corner of Beverly and Jenny in a church from 1926.
A church. That's cool.
A big old brick church. And that was formerly, my father-in-law had a studio called Castle Recording, which some folks out there may remember, for about 10 years.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Same building. He ran that from 03-ish to about 2013, at which time myself and Pamela, the studio manager, and also my wife, took it over. And basically we occupy the same space. We haven't changed the facility, but more or less anything else and everything else inside the facility has been switched out. And turned into what we now call Big Blue North. Just briefly, why is it Big Blue North? There is a gentleman from Utica whose name is Tim Gillis, who is about 10 years older than I am. He is born and raised in Utica, was a local musician, moved to New York City in the early 80s, and created his own home studio out of his house, which then grew into a 4 or 5 room multi-production studio in Jersey City for about 20-something years. He made about 700 records.
In his house?
Well, he graduated up from his home to a big facility with a staff of about 12 guys in 4 rooms.
Cool.
He made records. He made the Thursday records, which you guys may or may not know of, Taking Back Sunday records. But he made records. And long story short, we kind of got in contact with him. He came back home one year to make a Christmas record, a benefit record for the House of Good Shepherd,
cool.
Which is incidentally how we wound up knowing your last guest, Ryan Quinn. Anyways, we got to talking, and he found out that Pamela and I were going to make a go of trying to do a studio, and he basically became our mentor and our Sherpa, and decided, hey, why don't we partner up a little bit and kind of work together. And his studio was called Big Blue Meanie. So
Beatles reference?
Exactly. Yeah. Very good. Nobody's ever gotten that. So anyways, he basically said, hey, why don't we just work together, which was way beyond my original I guess hope was just to have some contact with the guy, give us some advice on what should we avoid, what should we do, gear acquisition, all of it. It's sort of what we were discussing before, where you don't really have anybody locally. Who am I asking?
Yeah, you need a mentor, kind of.
Locally, to run a giant studio. It's just not a lot of folks that kind of experience. Mm-hmm. So. It was probably the luckiest thing, or one of the many lucky things that has happened that's enabled us to have the studio. And he introduced us to many folks, guided us, helped us with equipment, helped us set the place up, and continues to this day. He's since closed his place and moved actually to Australia. His wife is Australian, and he's going to do a Big Blue South at some point.
Oh, wow. Big Blue Down Under.
Exactly. But we've since like inherited his tech, which is basically a fancy word for repair guy. But in our business, we're surrounded, at least in our studio, by a bunch of sort of ancient, very cool but old and cranky equipment. So it needs a lot of maintenance, and that knowledge is hard to find. And so now we have this gentleman, Eric, who's our tech, who was the tech at the studio in Jersey City for 20-something years, and now he's our tech here. And it's probably been one of the single most important factors for us to even be still functioning, to be quite honest. Because we use tape machines and analog equipment. We use stuff that's 30, 40 years old on a daily basis. And
it takes some specific knowledge.
It's
to know how
super specific knowledge.
Keep that running.
And again, who am I asking? And calling exactly who in Utica or Syracuse for that matter. And acquisition of parts, and just the sort of knowledge that doesn't come out of a textbook, about how to fix something when you don't exactly have what you need to fix it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, problem solving.
That MacGyver type of ability. So anyways, that's kind of the whole backstory, if you will, of the studio itself. And so here we are since 2013, operating as Big Blue North. And, it's been almost 3 years, and we're doing great. I mean,
still going.
Slammed. So busy we can't.
Awesome.
We can't even. We're booking into next year already.
That's good. Good for you.
That's great.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun.
So why a church?
Well, that wasn't my obviously decision or anything, but historically speaking, especially the vintage of that church, that church was built in 1926. Basically, PA systems and generally any kind of loudspeaker system probably didn't really start to be too terribly widespread until about the early 30s. So buildings of that age, theaters, churches, things of that nature, anything that was a public assembly, where you needed to have a large group of folks be able to hear somebody on the stage fairly clearly, even in the back row. So the design characteristics of a building had to be a lot different than they do now, where you had to take into account, like, how are we going to make this building? It's more or less its own PA system in a way.
So it's great acoustics.
It has pretty decent acoustics. Yeah. So there's the materials, right? Which is, in our case, it's brick on the outside, and it's three-course brick, which just means it's how many layers of it. And the ceiling, which is fir, individual strips of fir. Right, and it's basically like a barrel shape. Okay, there's no way you could build. You could certainly, if you had the money, you could, but it would be an exorbitant amount of money to build a building like this anymore. And there's just no need. We have phones that we can record into now. Everything's just so wildly different. But that's why the Stanley is kind of like the way the Stanley is. It was built at a time where the actors needed to be heard at the back of the room.
Right.
And it needed to sound good when an orchestra or any kind of music was played in there. So our building has that characteristic built into it. And it's why anybody would, there are several dozen across the country, church studios, for that reason. They typically sound good, and that's kind of our whole game. And also space. It's not a huge church. It's not a cathedral by any standard, but it's certainly a fairly sizable place. And in today's world, that is a rarity. Most studios are very small spaces now that are just like one or two small rooms with some foam or something on the wall.
Right.
You know, you can maybe squeeze a drummer in there. So we kind of have this other concept. It's more old school.
Mm-hmm.
It's about people gathering together.
Does that make your recordings very different, being less controllable, would you say?
Well, I would say this. Yeah, I would say this. That's a great point. I would say that the studio that what we're trying to, I guess, to use to our advantage is the space, and say, hey, the environment in which you're in is going to be a part of your recording, rather than trying to eliminate the environment. We're trying to say, hey, you should utilize the environment. And it's, again, hearkening back to the days when someone would go to RCA or Capitol or EMI Abbey Road and use the space as a tool in the recording process to enhance the recording, or to somehow color it or characterize it in a way of, hey, that drum sound, that room sound on a Led Zeppelin record, what is that?
Yeah,
I want that. How do I get that? And so the idea is to try to capitalize on that, uniqueness of the space. It's not just a piece of software that you can buy online and hit a button and there you go. I mean, that's cool. I do that too, sure. But the idea here is to say, no, this is actually special, unique. It's maybe one of a kind.
Yeah, you have
right?
That, yeah.
You can only go to Big Blue North for that sound. That's the goal. I'm not sure where that's not. It's easier said than done from my chair. That's not easy to do. To create a signature sound, but if you can at least start to get there, you start to compel artists to say, "Hey, we gotta go there."
Yeah, right. I want to record there.
I want to record there. I heard the XYZ record, and
sounds great.
That sounds great, and there's something to be said about communal recording. There's something to be said about people getting together and making music.
Yeah, and not being in separate rooms surrounded by phone.
Or not even being in the same building.
Yeah.
Right? Doing it online and all of this nonsense, which is fine. I mean, technology is I'm not an anti-technology guy, but I do think that some of it is bringing about a sense of isolation that is, I think, for music, strange. I think it is not I don't feel like, to me, it doesn't feel like something that's a solitary endeavor.
And the sound can be manipulated a lot more.
Yeah, and that's the other, I won't say problem, but danger.
Right.
And it's, I think, similar for what you guys do, that the tools now that are available to most folks are super powerful. And if anybody has enough money, they can go buy one of your cameras. And if they read a couple books or maybe watch a couple tutorials online, suddenly they're video people.
Not good ones, but it could be.
Because it's a craft, really, at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Tools only get you so far.
Right. I always use this analogy where, like, because Pamela laughs at me because I'm so ham-handed with like if I try to build something, I mean, forget about it, right? So I always use the analogy. You could buy me the entire store buy me Lowe's department of all of their power tools. And I'm still I'm going to cut my fingers off. It's not going to matter that I have the finest saw available, except that I'll probably be a really clean cut. Which will be good for me. They
can put it back on.
Put it back on.
Yeah.
This was a good saw, Mr. Adderman. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it is not. It can't just be the tools. But any computer you buy now, a Mac comes with GarageBand, comes with a bunch of stuff. Plug a silly little mic in, and you're a producer. Not really. And I don't mean that as a slam against folks trying to do stuff on their own and trying to explore and be creative and learn on their own. But what I do find is that there's this lack of understanding about how all the records that you grow up with and love were made by people together playing to their strengths. the musicians come in and play. The producer comes in and does his thing. The recording engineer comes in and does his thing. That separation of duties and, hey, you do this end, you do that end, you do that, you do that. I'm going to do this. You guys play. It's going to be great. And if you're working with folks that are, on the same wave, that's how you're going to get great art. That's how you're going to get great, at least in records. That's how you're going to get a great product.
Mm-hmm. Good collaboration.
It's collaborative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's bouncing ideas. It's critiquing things and saying, I'm hearing this. I'm not so sure. Are you hearing that? Maybe you're too close to it because you're the bass player in the band. But I'm saying, I don't think your bass part's right, man, and here's why. And having just these kinds of round table discussions about things and being able to sort of meld it all together and having the space to do that is what we kind of like to sort of wave our flag and say, hey, this is where you can do this. Because if you come in as an artist, you get the run of the whole place. And I can't remember, but it's a big building, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 square feet. I mean, it's stupid. And that's also I think what makes us different too, is that we don't have 5 rooms with a bunch of artists all ramming around and you're sequestered in just your little room and maybe, stay in there and go to the bathroom and come back. I mean, you get the whole place to sort of, it's rock and roll playground, I mean, that's the idea anyway, is it's musicians' fantasy camp. Come play with all your favorite instruments, all your amplifiers, all your keyboards, all the drum sets, all the fancy microphones in the big fancy room with the fancy gear. And make a record. And have fun, Pretend it's like the 80s. the 70s or whatever.
We'll have to start a band then.
Yeah.
It's just So have you worked with any big names or anything like that? Or
very famous people. Yes. No, well, I mean, I wouldn't say famous people, no. That's the goal, maybe, right? That'd be great.
Yeah.
Although, to be honest, as a sidebar, I'm not really, I don't think that our goal is to have, Katy Perry in. I'm not really kind of interested, and it's nothing against her or her music. It isn't what it is about. We really do like the mom and pop feel of it. We like the idea that it's a sort of an incubator in a way for artists to maybe hopefully go on to the stratosphere. But I like the sort of bands that are on the indie level, trying to get to a level of being signed, or they're signed, but it's a sort of small label and they're on a small tour and they're trying to get their legs going.
Yeah, so trying to crest that point.
Yeah, it's more fun for me, and so we have sort of two ways that we do stuff. We do local stuff, of course. So we've done, I don't know, we did Ryan Quinn, right? We did his EP. We did Street Rock, which is Z's band. Mm-hmm. We did Glen Street, which is the kids from New Hartford, which you may or may not know about. But we did Anthony Bianco, who's Draculatron and Anthony in the Mountain. We were doing Comfy, which is Connor Benacasta's band, right? And we're doing a band from Syracuse, Flashing Astonishers. We do Mason's Revolt. We do anything that's an ensemble, pretty much. Anything that's 2 or more people. We'll do. Right. I don't mean that we're just going to throw you out if you're only one person. But I think what we're built for is that kind of thing. Bands, ensembles, things like that. And then the other sort of prong of or spoke of the wheel is doing stuff that's completely from New York, anywhere, Boston, anywhere, Toronto, any place. Basically, we have a residence that's basically can house, I think, 8 pretty comfortably, and that's part of the package. So you don't, if you're an out of town client, you just come and you stay with us. We take care of the whole thing.
Oh, that's neat.
And that really is a big component of why people come to us. They don't have to stay in the Red Roof for. Right. We have a band right now from Albany that's signed to a label called Equal Vision. They're with us for another week. They've been with us for 3 weeks now. That's the kind of jobs that we're starting to see more and more of. People coming and blocking out weeks at a time and it continues to sort of be that's done by a freelance engineer. I'm not doing that particular record. They got a guy from Seattle to fly in over here and do the record with them, and they came to the studio and they're living with us for 3 weeks. Not with us, but at the residence. And then we have another label, Rise Records, which is a bigger label, and they're bringing a client to us who shall remain nameless at the moment, but they're coming for all of September and all of October, and that's to date that's our longest haul so far. So it's about nine weeks.
Oh,
nice. But see, the appeal to them and the appeal to many of these bands that we have talked to, who have stayed for less time but have a lot of New York City stuff that's come to us, it's get out of Dodge. They come up here and they think, whoa, it's this quaint Utica.
We're in upstate.
Yeah, there's trees and there's no traffic.
Right.
And it's pretty safe. I mean, it's safe comparatively to a lot where these guys are coming from. And there's no parking. Give me a break. Park wherever you want. And food is cheap and decent and et cetera. So It's a win. So many people come up here and just like think Utica is amazing. And I'm not saying that it isn't, but it's kind of a reminder because we're all here all the time.
Right.
Of what, it is. We got a lot. We couldn't really honestly do the studio, in a city like New York. There's no way. The only reason this thing exists is because it's in a place like Utica, where it's got enough infrastructure. It's still a city, but it's still small and controllable and easy to navigate. People are blown away that you can drive 5 miles or something in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's always the kids from New York that come up are always like, well, if that's 9 miles away, we should leave. That's going to take us a half an hour. And I have to giggle because it's like, no, dude, you're going to be there in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And, but it's got enough stuff. They can go to Varick Street. They can take the brewery tour. They can go hit up the zoo. Some of them like the cemetery, Forest Hills. They think that's the Eagle. They think that all that stuff's amazing. They can shoot up north a little bit to go to Old Forge. They can hit the golf course if they want to.
A lot of stuff to do in Utica.
There's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, but it's all right around us. So.
Kind of, yeah, and it's in it, but it's small enough and it's cheap. I mean, comparably,
relative,
you know what I mean? You can get a meal for like 10, 12, 15 bucks.
Must be cool to be a Utica ambassador for all the people coming up.
Well, that's the thing. We get to sort of say, we get to sort of try to help be part of this thing of turning our city around and saying, hey, you know what? This is a cool place actually.
Right. Yeah.
And we see so many people. I mean, we see all kinds of crazy people. Our days are very interesting. We get a lot of different and really cool folks from all over the country. And, so it isn't like being an ambassador in a way. They don't spend an awful lot of time here, but, they all walk away saying, this has been great. We love the Half Moons and Utica Club. We do the whole thing. We give them the whole, buy them the Utica coffee, the whole thing. It's great. Yeah. So, we really, there's no way we could be doing this anyplace else. We're happy to be here, honestly. And we're happy to as much as I do love all of the out-of-town stuff and the bigger jobs, we do as anybody that we can locally. I think we've almost done everybody that we can do, but you know what I mean?
Nice.
If anybody else is out there and they want to come down, please call us. 733-9910.
Sweet. Yeah, so then how do people get in touch with you guys?
Again, we were discussing, I can't, the studio is a strange business. A recording studio is not like owning a shoe store. You can't put an ad on television or in the paper. So if you really are interested in making a recording, we've got a Facebook page, obviously. It's Big Blue North. Just type it in, it'll come right up. BigBlueNorth.com is the webpage. It's got anything you need to know about everything that we do. And then just call the studio.
You guys are booking into when right now?
Well, yeah, so we're getting busy now. It used to be a thing where I'd say, hey, call and book us ahead to give us 2 or 3 weeks, but that has not now been the case. We're looking more like end of the year, beginning of next year.
That's great.
If that continues, that'll sort of, which can be an obstacle, but I would say the idea of it being give us a call for next weekend.
Right.
I think that ship has sailed. I think we're a little too busy for that now.
Good.
But 733-9910. Call us. We're people always ask us, how much does it cost? Is always the main question. And I would just say call, email. We work by project.
Right.
There's way too many details. It'd be like somebody calling you guys and saying, so how much is it to take my picture? I mean, you can kind of give an answer, but it's so hard. There's too many variables. So just give us a call, give us a shout, hit us up, and we just kind of like to chat with each person individually about that. It's not like it's any big secret. It's just too hard of a question to answer. We don't go, we do blah. Every project's different.
So yeah, thanks for being on the couch.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out
It's
with
been
us.
great. Yeah. I'm a little sticky to it, but it's all good.
Leather.
That's the leather.
Does it,
Yeah.
for sure.
Presents?
Oh, for us?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. This is for
It's for our wives.
No, yeah. This is our little bit of swag. If anybody can see it, it's for you guys. So yeah, the string is no charge.
That's awesome.
These are for people. These are not for sale. So put them in a glass case.
Yeah,
They're for you, of course. Yes.
cool. And then if you
record, that's what you do. You got to earn these.
You only get them if you
You
record.
only get them if you record. So.
We secretly
of course,
record.
you guys didn't record.
well, we're recording you.
You're recording me.
That's
right,
how you guys
yep.
So maybe I should take them back. And there's some little pins here for you.
Oh, cool.
And I think we got some
Awesome.
stickers.
Thank
you.
But yeah, that's sort of a thing, we do. And I also did want to give a shout out to Zeno, who you guys I think had on too.
Yep.
Newlywed.
Yeah,
we kind of
Newlywed.
work with him and through him. He works with us and through us. But
Yeah.
it's fun to give a shout out to him. He's helped me for many, 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 many hours at the studio. So
Nice.
shout outs to Zeno.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for being on the
Thank
couch.
you for
thank
having
you.
me. Thanks for
We
giving us the
appreciate
chance
it.
to run my mouth about what we do. Appreciate it.
Definitely, anytime. So thank you guys for watching. If you guys want to stay up to date with all of our Facebook videos we're coming out with every single Tuesday, be sure to like our page, facebook.com/onthecouchwgc. Thanks. See you next time. Bye, everybody.
If you guys want to sponsor On the Couch with Gavin and Chris, send us a message on Facebook and learn how.